morning, Twin Cities. Welcome to Reckoning with Real Estate, a show about the American dream and building a better real estate company. We are in studio, I'm Paige Kale with the Real Estate Collaborative, and I'm joined in studio today with Megan Howard, who's also with the Real Estate Collaborative. And we have a special guest today joining us all the way from California. She is not in the studio, Leora Tanwatko Ross, and she is with YIMBY Action. Welcome, Leora.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're really excited too. I was very, very nervous this morning driving here. I was like, because really, YIMBY Action is kind of like, I don't know. You guys are doing such great things that we're really excited that you're here with us. So we're going to talk a little bit about the housing shortage and why it's so difficult to get housing built in the United States. And I'm going to start off, Leora, I'll just do a quick read through of your bio. Leora has been organizing for housing since 2015. Before YIMBY Action, she worked at the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo, where she focused on organizing people in support of affordable housing. Leora has also served as the president of the Peninsula Democratic Coalition, the oldest and largest Democratic club in Silicon Valley. This is my favorite part of your bio. I'm sure you've heard this before. When she's near surface level parking lots, she'll point out that they could be homes to anyone within hearing distance. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in English and Media Studies from the University of Virginia. So welcome, Leora. Welcome again.
Thank you. Can I add one thing to that bio that's
Please,
actually kind of relevant? So I attended the University of Oregon for architecture.
Oh, cool.
15 years ago, they were the leading school for sustainable design.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that was really important to me. However, when I got there, I realized I was learning how to reduce the HVAC costs for large single-family homes. I was learning about daylighting so people could save money on lights, things that are really important, but the scale of it was not what I wanted to be working on. Mm-hmm. And I took a few urban planning classes, and in one of those classes, my teacher made an offhand comment. He was like, well, if you want to change the way cities run, you shouldn't be here. You should be in politics. And I'm sure he has no idea the trajectory that comment set me on. But literally within a week, I was like, oh, I'm in the wrong place. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's really interesting. You should let him know sometime. I'm sure he'd appreciate knowing his words had impact on students.
Yeah, look what you did.
Right. Well, and that's interesting. So my background before I became a realtor is I went to the School of Architecture at the University of Minnesota and then went into urban planning. So we have similar kind of backgrounds, and decided I didn't want to be an architect. And anyway, worked in affordable housing for a while and then became a realtor, which is a weird trajectory, but we can talk about that on some other episode. So the first question we ask our guests is, so when you think of the American dream, what do you feel or what do you think about?
White picket fences is the imagery. It's the lawn. It's a single family home, I would say. And I think a big component is having access to things that your parents couldn't access, whether that's, I don't know, driving fancier cars than they did or making more money. It's probably making more money than they did.
So you could drive fancier cars than they did.
Yeah.
More money. But I see what you're saying, like that kind of generational progression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And freedom to decide if you wanted to have children and, or not, being able to afford to if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. And being able to provide for them, where they could have their own bedroom, they could have a backyard.
Right.
I think that's a big part of it.
Right. And of course, we all know that is becoming increasingly more difficult for folks, which is why we're going to have this conversation today. So this is the first part of a 2-part series. The next episode will air next week and talk about housing advocacy and how you can get involved. Why don't you tell us a little bit? I know you've been with YIMBY Action since 2020, I think is what I read. So why don't you tell us a little bit about YIMBY Action and kind of what that organization does?
Yeah, we are a national group, and our main strategy is to get everyday people involved in their local communities, talking to their mayors, and really kind of in the guts of this local political system. So, we teach people how to organize themselves and their neighbors to shape their towns and cities in the ways that they want. And for a lot of people, that means being able to move from being a renter to being a homeowner.
Right.
For some of our more well-heeled donors, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I'm going to do this anyways. It means being able to like build their dream home without like getting too much red tape from their local communities. And then for some folks, renters, and this is where I was when I became a YIMBY, I was 33 and I was living at home, and I really wanted to have a future where I wasn't living with my parents and I wasn't, needing to have 3 or 4 roommates to be able to survive in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Well, and we were just talking about this the other day, Paige, that the national average, is it national or Minnesota first-time home buyer?
National, I think national across the country. Yeah.
The age of a first-time home buyer now is 37 years old for your first-time home.
And that makes sense because there's other data that says that you're going to have to save for 28 years or something like that to be able to afford a home,
Yep.
So, and I am fortunate, and something that's interesting for me is pretty much I grew up right outside of San Francisco in Millbrae. And it was during the dot-com boom, but I didn't know that. I was just in high school trying to skip class without my teachers noticing. And
I like you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. But all of my friends, we all did the same thing. All of our parents had invested in their homes, in these suburban homes, and we went to college. We went to good colleges. We studied hard, even though we skipped school sometimes. And then we came back. We moved back in, and like the sort of proverbial living in your mother's basement thing happened with all of us. And there wasn't that much shame about it because it's the Bay Area, to be honest. And also, It's probably different for women than it is for men,
Yeah. The stereotype or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But like me and all of my friends were able to come back after college, get well-paying jobs in the San Francisco Bay Area, pay $0 for rent, really like make a pile of money for a down payment, thanks to our parents, and then go from living at home to owning a house. That was our trajectory. And, that's not a viable option for millions of people.
Right. And to your point, what's so interesting about YIMBY Action, I think, is, it started in the Bay Area, and, like 2015, is that when YIMBY Action started? Like 10 years ago. But all these problems that San Francisco was experiencing like 10, 20, 30 years ago it's crept across the United States. Every kind of metro area is experiencing similar problems, maybe different reasons for those problems, and maybe not to the extreme, but there's certainly lessons that we can learn from your experience, from YIMBY Action, from California. I'm also the other thing that I did to prepare, I've had this book for a couple years. I don't know if people can see it. It's like my favorite all-time book about housing, I think. I finally took the time to read it. I read like the first 5 or 10 pages when I first got it, and I'm like, it is so spot on about the housing crisis and why it's so hard to build housing. And it's not that complicated, and yet it is complicated,
Mhm.
right?
So, Paige, that book that you're holding was my entrance into hippieism. I
I was
read
wondering
that
about that.
article. Yes,
Yeah.
Kim My Cutler is a goddamn genius.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote that. I read it and I was all in. I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the vomiting anarchists that's so funny to me. So, Sonia Traus created this Bay Area Renters Federation, which we called BARF. And it got
Yes,
to the
that's so
point
awesome.
where in San Francisco in 2014, 2013, if you went to a party, you could look someone in the eye and say, "Are you a barfer?"
Oh my
And
gosh,
they
that's amazing.
they would maybe say like, "Yeah, are you a barfer?" And you'd be like, "Yep." And it wasn't
Wow.
weird.
Wow. And it
Yes.
wasn't about alcohol and drinking too much.
No.
No, it's about
Um,
housing.
yeah.
Housing,
So
yes.
Megan has the book now. Do you want to read the title of it completely? And the author, because it's the best title ever,
Yes.
too.
It is called How Burrowing Owls Lead to Vomiting Anarchists, or San Francisco's Housing Crisis Explained, which is awesome.
I
Yeah.
think it should be required reading for every
Yes.
housing policy class, because it really is, and for every realtor out there too. And they're hard to come by, these books.
Yeah.
They're kind
We
of hard
have a
to find.
bunch. So if you want to,
Do
Ooh,
you?
yeah.
yeah,
I
a
would
couple
buy a
boxes
lot
in
of
our
them
office.
from you. Yes.
And
Okay.
maybe could we, if somebody writes us, Paige, could we send them a book?
Sure. If they want to put something, go to our website at
Yep.
therecolab.com and send us a note. We can definitely do that. Okay. So housing. Let's see. Let's start with the first question. In the simplest terms, how would you define housing in this country, and what are the key, often overlooked components that define a community's housing landscape? So, I guess, how would you define the anatomy of housing in the United States?
Housing is shelter. It's
Mhm.
everything. It's opportunity. It's your family. It's the dinner table,
Mhm.
um, and it is the source of generational wealth, as we talked about a little bit. It's a way that cities have, um, land use decisions that they've made have been a way that they've controlled poor people and Black
Right.
people.
Yep.
Um, and I think, talking about the current state of housing makes me a little bit sad, because to me, it's marked by this lack of expertise within the decision makers.
Yes.
The
And
decision
we're
makers,
seeing that at the federal government in spades, but yeah.
exactly, yeah. But it's pervasive through, even to your
Mhm.
local county supervisor or mayor who, these folks, what they need to do to get the
Leora, I'm
power.
sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to
Yeah, go ahead.
tag that thought
Yeah.
about local leaders not understanding housing policy. And we're going to head into break,
Okay.
and then we're going to see you on the other side. So we'll be back in a few minutes. You're listening to
Awesome.
Reckoning with Real Estate.
Oh, what a sight. Wrecking balls in flight, bringing down the light. Every swing you take might not take.
There we go.
Welcome back to the second part of Reckoning with Real Estate. I'm Paige with the Real Estate Collaborative, and joined by Megan Howard, also with the Real Estate Collaborative. And today we have Leora on our computer screen. She's in California. She's with YIMBY Action, which stands for, Megan pointed out that we didn't say what YIMBY stands for, Yes in My Backyard. So it's an organization based in California, has national reach as well. 70 chapters, Leora, is that about right? 70
About right. Yeah.
local chapters around the United States, which we're a part of as well, the Twin Cities chapter. But before the break, we were talking a little bit about that often with housing, we're in a housing crisis. We have been for decades. I mean, it's been coming for decades, and now it's just increasingly getting worse. But that policymakers, the people that are making the decisions around policy and housing, don't often understand the basics of housing. And we kind of left off talking about supply and demand. And Leora, I'll let you kind of take it from there because I know California has some interesting things that the rest of us don't have in terms of policy on Proposition 13 and all of that. But
Well, so I want to answer your question by asking you a spicy question back, which is, could people be forgiven for not intuitively understanding supply and demand as it relates to housing because there are so many sort of complicated, conflating policies,
sure.
like at least here, the time between a proposal being submitted to the city and it being
Mhm.
open and ready for people to move in, sometimes that's 10 years.
Yep.
Like,
Right. That's
you
crazy.
know,
And is that
and yeah,
San Francisco Bay Area in particular, or is it kind of all of California is like that?
there are some places that are easier to build than others. So
Okay.
no, it's not going to be, the 10-year timeline really is for affordable housing, I would say. If
Okay.
you want to build, to be honest, if you want to build single family homes in kind of a subdivision where there's no neighbors who are going to file a CEQA lawsuit against you, it's going to be faster.
Yep. Yep. Well, in your question, I mean, yes, I think people can be forgiven. Yes, I'm a very person. But yeah, I think people can be forgiven for not. I mean, you said something during break about there are active campaigns within California by
Yeah.
NIMBYs, not in my backyard, that say that housing has nothing to do with supply and demand. Am I saying that correctly?
Well, yeah, there was a big campaign called Moms for Housing that had a bunch of fake data about vacancy rates. So the claim was that all of these new units that were getting built by, greedy developers were actually sitting empty. And, because of tax breaks, that made financial sense for the investors. And, I don't really want to be repeating the wrong numbers, but
Sure.
there is a coordinated campaign to say that there are a ton of empty homes here that that we have more empty homes than we have homeless people actually, and
And that's
people.
false. That's false,
Yes.
to be clear.
Well,
Okay.
and vacancy rates are hard, right? Because if someone has a second home or if someone is moving out or there's all these situations where a vacancy doesn't mean that the unit is available for people to live in. I mean,
Right.
um, and you can't just kind of move people into other people's houses. Like that's not how this works. So,
Right.
um,
I
yeah,
think we
and
hear that though in Minnesota for sure. I mean, I'm sure it's the same.
yeah,
Anywhere you go, every American city has a housing issue shortage. And so, but you do hear, oh, but I see all these apartment buildings and they're still advertising that there's places to
Right.
rent. I don't, and people will say, I don't understand. Why don't people, go and live there? Why do we need to build more? So how do you break that down for folks that there is not enough housing? And when you get in there and look at the research and the facts and the data, although it is difficult when there is incorrect data being sent out there, and what do you
yeah.
know, or what is right and what is wrong? What is kind of when you approach people in a parking lot and say this should be housing? Do you have like a little 10-second? I don't
Well,
know.
for the vacancy thing, it's, having vacant apartments is really good for renters. It's actually the best thing that you can have. And if you ask people to step through the scenario, they have their application, they're looking for a place to live. Would you rather be talking to a landlord who has empty units and like needs to start
Right.
making money off of them? Or would you rather be in a line with 40 other people,
Yes.
all with their applications filled out on a Saturday morning? I mean, that happens in the Bay Area. Lines go around the block for
Right.
single units.
That is,
Um,
yeah. That's
And you
crazy.
have to, the craziest story I heard was my friend who said that she followed up with the landlord asking, like, hey, is my application accepted? And he was like, actually, there's someone who works at a bakery in town. He said that on top of paying rent, he would bring me fresh baked goods every week.
Okay.
And so I picked him.
Wow.
Well, and we've experienced that with like selling homes here in our market, which is still
Mhm.
pretty healthy and still somewhat of a seller's market. People will like give their first child to get the home if they can.
Mhm.
Right.
Generally, the seller is not going to take a child in exchange for selling their home to them. But yeah, and what Megan was saying earlier about, talking about vacancy rates, and if there's a healthy vacancy rate too, doesn't that keep prices down as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sort of part of getting out of the like loop of kind of yelling at people about supply and demand and like
Yep.
showing them the data is
Right.
really stepping away from those terms and just talking through it with them of like, well, when's the last time you looked at apartments? Like,
Mhm.
what was your experience? Do you know anyone who's,
Yeah.
like what's their situation? Um, Something else too is, when talking to folks who are very comfortable, who see like townhomes or condos being built in their community, who really are frightened by that. One of the things that I have done is, sort of sit down and be like, okay, let's talk about your neighbors, right? Your city is your neighborhood is your neighborhood because of the people who live with you, right, and around you.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of jobs do they do? And
Mm-hmm.
here it's like, well, they're a software programmer or they're, high up at some tech company. And so if your neighborhood is made up of the people who are around you, like, wouldn't you want to open that up to people who, are school teachers or work at the grocery store? There's all kinds of like ways to help people understand that despite the individualistic culture that we have created for ourselves, we are all
Right.
connected. It matters. And it does matter if the person that is serving you food lives in their car or like can't afford to take a sick day. That matters for you.
Yep.
Because you might get sick.
Yep.
So I know that like it would be ideal if we all just kind of understood these things like intuitively and like felt connected to each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard.
One thing the book also brought up, and I think NIMBYs are very, I don't know if it's guilty is the right word, but they, a metro area is made up of a whole bunch of municipalities that all have different,
Right.
zoning and laws and all of it. And the idea that, well, we don't want them here, but they can go live over there, is, I think, maybe one way that people kind of rationalize it in their head. I mean, I don't get it. Like, if I could go through the world and my days without seeing a homeless person, I would almost pay good money for that. Like, it's just, it's heartbreaking. And it doesn't make sense to me in a country as rich as ours to have so many homeless people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as we are talking and we're saying NIMBY too for the listeners, it's NIMBY would be the opposite of YIMBY. So not in my backyard. Folks who are, and you often hear, I am for, I hope that people find housing, but not in my backyard, not in my neighbor. I don't want,
right.
I don't want, like you had said, Leora, a development, going up.
And they use all sorts of crazy reasons for it, which this book gets to as
Mhm.
well, which I know, Leora, do you want to like just mention the top 3 reasons that people will take cover with?
I mean, traffic,
Mhm.
parking, shadows. My favorites though are like those skateboarding kids are gonna, like when you suggest apartments near the beach, they're like, oh no, they're gonna be skateboarders who live there. And like the sound of children laughing.
Yes.
No laughing children.
Yes.
No joy. Get that
Right.
shit out of here.
Right. And then there are also the environmental reasons too. You know, that the book talks about the burrowing owls that people will, it's just people will come up with any reason just to
Yeah.
Yes.
get their way.
And I would like to
guess.
say you can be a YIMBY and an environmentalist, as we are.
Yeah.
As we
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
People try to peg us against each other.
I
and that's
think another thing is we do like to like sort of point out all the hypocrisies that people who NIMBYs have, right? But like it is the amount of people who actually know what a NIMBY is and who have like gone to a planning meeting or a city council meeting is so small. Like we really encourage our chapters to focus on the people who are like who are frustrated with the way their city is, who like have a vision for their city, right?
Right.
And but have no idea how to make it happen.
Yep.
And you'll find that in everyone. Someone who like wants more sidewalks in their neighborhood, or they want to see like these, you know, they want to see places where like it's safer to walk. They want traffic calming. Like most people want that, and the vast majority of people are not the people that you and I come to face with a lot, who are like railing about parking or, you know, greedy developers or whatever it may be. Like those people are the minority.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that wraps us up today. Thank you, Leora, for joining us. And I feel like we're going to have you back next week, I think. So let's just make that happen, and maybe a few more times in the next year, because this is a really juicy topic. So thank you. You're listening to Reckoning with Real Estate, and we hope you listen in next Sunday.